Hi again, everyone. It's Mark here. I'm the founder of the Arts and Culture Network, and I'm delighted that Elena has joined me today. Elena, is it Elena or Eleanor? Elena,
Elena.
Elena,
Hi,
Elena.
Mark.
Thank you so much for joining me and for being a full member of our gang. This is the chance I get to find out more about you and the work that you do, introduce you to our other members, and we're going to have some fun as well. So that would be good. But before we do that, why don't you tell us a little bit about the work that you do, where you're based, um, and if you have a superpower and if you have any passions that drive your work.
Well, first of all, I'm really pleased to be here into this group, so my pleasure. My name is Elena Ortega, and I'm a classical guitarist from Madrid. And well, about my power, I guess it's like I like to um just to um I don't know how to describe it, but you know, say something. I like to provoke emotions
Love it.
in the
Provoke,
audience. So I
provoking
I
emotions.
that's my aim, and
That's
to
good. And I've listened to some of it, and you do. Can I suggest you move your microphone down to under your chin? It'll still pick up. That would be
okay,
great.
that's
Let's
really
try
okay.
that. Let's try that.
It's okay
It's a
now,
bit quiet now, so perhaps move it up just a little. There we go.
like this. It's okay.
Yes, or even a
Okay,
bit more. Strange, isn't it? There we go. That's fine.
okay.
There we go. Excellent. So that's fun. So where did you train, or are you self-taught? Who were your teachers?
Yeah, well, I studied here in Madrid with different teachers well, since I was a child until I went to the higher conservatory here in Madrid. And then I studied in Sevilla with another great masters of the guitar, and then came back to Madrid and continued studying with more teachers and maestros.
I love Sevilla. My brother lived there for 11 years. He was a cellist in the Real Symphony at the Maestranta. And he would walk from his apartment to the concert hall with his cello, and he would pass, I think, 23 bars.
Yes, very typical here in
And
Spain.
and on the way back from the concert, he wouldn't pass them. he would go in. Yeah, I loved it. It was fantastic. I love the Heralda, the in Sevilla, where the tower, the steps go up like that, don't they? And I gather that's so that the king could walk his horse up to the top of the Heralda. So lovely.
Yes,
It's a
it's a
wonderful.
beautiful city. Yeah,
It is a beautiful city.
yes, I love
Excellent.
Sevilla as well.
I bet it's lovely there now, warm. Be perfect there now. Be too warm in July and August, but
Yes,
now it would be great.
yes.
Excellent. And where can we find your music?
I'm on Spotify, on Apple Music, and Amazon Music. Well, all the digital platforms. I have a YouTube channel as well.
Okay.
So yeah.
We'll make
Uh,
sure they're all linked when we publish the profile, which would be great. And do
okay.
you have you commissioned any work or do you write yourself?
No, I do not compose. I would love to, but I have a lot of respect for composing music for composers. So I would love it, but not at the moment.
And if you had to program a concert and you had to choose an overture, a guitar concerto, and a symphony, what would you choose?
Hmm. Well, it's a difficult question. The guitar is always like very isolated in comparison to other instruments. So, well, if I had to program, then it depends. If I want a guitar, I would program a guitar concerto. Of course, but
Which guitar concerto?
well, my favorite, it likes I always loved since I was a child, Aranjuez concerto. But there are beautiful pieces for guitar. I don't know. Concierto Mudéjar by Antón García Ril. It's a really beautiful one. Concierto del Sur by Ponthe as well. Tedesco. Well, I don't know. There are lots of beautiful concertos.
Fantastic. Excellent. Well, there's our fantasy concert. I should add the fantasy concert to the quiz.
Yeah.
Fun. Excellent. So thank you so much. So we're going to have some fun now so that we can understand a bit more about Elena. I'm going to start with something a bit different, actually. We're going to play the this or that game.
Okay.
I'm going to give you two options and you have to choose one.
Oh my God. Okay.
It's quite
Let's
fast.
go.
Okay.
Let's go. Let's go.
Let's go. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Radio or television?
Radio.
High heels or flip-flops?
Don't know. High heels, maybe.
High heels. Car or motorcycle?
Well, I cannot ride a motorcycle. I don't know, so car.
Comedy or horror?
Sorry?
Comedy or horror?
Comedy.
Concert hall or sports stadium?
Depending, but concert hall.
Cat or dog?
Oh, difficult. I have had both.
There we are. We're back.
Yeah.
We're back. We're
Okay,
back.
okay.
It's an occupational hazard. There we
Yes.
go. Test the water or jump in at the deep end?
I don't know. Can you repeat the options again, please?
Test the water with your toe in the swimming pool, or jump in at the deep end.
Test the water, I guess. Yes.
Okay. Beethoven or Mozart?
Can you repeat? Yeah.
Beethoven or Mozart?
Oh, Beethoven.
Indoors or outdoors?
I would say outdoors.
New York or Los Angeles?
Ooh, I've only been to New York, so let's say New York.
And finally, red or white wine?
Red wine.
There we go. Well done. Now you see we know all about Elena now.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to create your fantasy cultural year from the answers to 10 easy questions. So
okay.
Now in order to do that, I need to place you somewhere in the world. So I'm going to do that by asking you for your favorite building.
My favorite building. Wow. I think I haven't thought about this. So my favorite building. It has to be well, I don't know, a monument or
anywhere in the world. You may not have seen it. It may be one that you've always wanted to see.
Well, I would love to go to see the pyramids in Egypt. So
perfect. There we go. We're going to take you to the valley. It's not the Valley of the Kings. It's the other one, isn't it?
yeah,
up near Cairo.
Yeah.
The Great Pyramids of Giza.
Yes.
Sounds like the title of a song.
Yeah.
or a piece of music. Excellent. So you're sitting in a cafe in Cairo, looking out over the desert towards the pyramids. Okay.
Okay.
And on your right is a book.
Okay.
which you've been reading, and it can be any book. It could be your favorite book. It could be a new book that you've discovered, or it could be a book that has been with you all your life, or a book that has changed your life. What's the book?
Ooh. Well, some of my one of my favorite books is like Lord of the Rings. So I could say Lord of the Rings.
Wonderful. I started listening to Audible. They've published an unabridged read with Andy Serkis, who played Gollum.
Oh,
reading it on Audible. I started it last night, actually. One ring to rule them all, and in the darkness bind them, isn't it? That I love it. I probably read that every year. In fact, it would probably be my quiz category. Do you know it really? Do you know it quite well?
well, I haven't heard to this audio book, but if it's Andy Serkis, I would like to hear at least some of the because
Right,
that
we're going to
voice.
have a bit of different fun here. Okay, we're going to ask each other questions about Lord of the Rings.
Okay. Okay. Well. Okay.
Yeah, so it'll be a bit different. Okay, shall I go first?
Okay.
What was the name of the ranger that the hobbits met at the Prancing Pony?
Ooh, but it was when they were looking for Trancos.
They were looking for Gandalf in the rain.
Yeah, and didn't I read the Lord of the Rings some years ago, but last time because I have read it sometime. But didn't they found Trancos there, which was Aragorn?
Yes, yeah, Strider, I think they called him as well, Aragorn.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, I was saying in Spanish, Trancos with they called
yes,
because I
okay.
was Aragorn, but they called him like Trancos, or he was like some.
Right, your turn.
Okay. Um. Which was the name where the place where Frodo was injured by the knights of the how do you say?
Oh, I'm thinking something like Karas Morgul, but that doesn't sound right. Weathertop.
The the top of the where Frodo was
Stabbed
injured.
by one of the
Yes.
yeah, I think it was Weathertop.
Yeah, I think
We
I
call it.
don't know in English. I don't know,
Yeah.
but it's like I have to remember some things. I have to read it again, the book.
Okay, here's one that doesn't require language or translation. How many members were there of the Fellowship of the Ring?
9.
Yes. We know our stuff. We're good. This is great. I wish I knew Spanish well enough to be able to read it in Spanish, because
Yeah, and I should read it in English as well. So
yeah.
yeah.
Excellent. We digress, but that was good fun. So we're going to rustle through these now because I'm conscious of your time. So we've had, yes. So the book, what was the book? Lord of the Rings, of course. Yes.
Yes.
There's a drink on your left. So you're
Okay.
there in Cairo, sunny, 6 p.m., nice and warm and sunny. Pyramids out there, Lord of the Rings, drink. What's the drink?
Well, I guess it would be maybe a cup of wine or maybe a
Yeah.
coffee.
Yeah, you can have both. You can have a glass
Okay.
of white wine, dry white wine, very cold, and a nice double espresso. There we go.
Yeah, maybe a coffee would be a good
Excellent.
option.
Now you've met some people in Cairo who want to send you on a world tour to study guitar music. Okay. They're going to pay you a lot of money. It's all expenses paid, first class all the way. You have to decide in which country you're going to study guitar playing. Not you, but study the landscape of guitar playing.
So the question is, those people
Where do you go?
They have to start studying guitar?
No. The family foundation, with all the money, they want to send you on a study trip. Where would you like to study the guitar?
Well, study in Spain, but
it doesn't have to be in Spain, but it can be.
It could be in Spain. Well, you know, the guitarist comes from Spain, but
you're going to Seville. I know you're going to go to Seville.
Yeah, Sevilla is great. I love Sevilla. No, but maybe I would love to go to Italy, France, and Mexico, Argentina.
Oh, Argentina sounds good. That sounds good. Okay, we're going to send you to Argentina. You're going to Buenos Aires to study. You don't have to study with a teacher. You have to study the world of guitar in Buenos Aires. So you get to meet lots of different guitarists and interview them. There, you're going to make a TV show about the guitar. You're going to write a book and record lots of guitar music across Argentina. There we go. Does that sound like good fun?
Yeah, sounds great.
Now, on your way from we're going from, where are you now? Remind me where you're now.
From Cairo to Argentina, or
Cairo to Argentina, first class. On the aeroplane, you turn left. You get a nice long bed, and the steward comes to you and gives you a message. And the message is from the Egyptian Family Foundation. They want to study you while you study the guitar. And they have asked you to limit your musical listening to one very specific type of or genre of music.
Only one.
Only one.
Wow.
Una más.
It's difficult because I'm used to listening to many different kinds, different genres of music. It depends on my mood, on the moment of the day, you know. So it's difficult to decide because sometimes I'm just like, I need to be relaxed, and then. But I guess maybe if there is only one possible genre, it would be classical, just to find
that's quite broad.
different moods. You know,
yes. You can have Palestrina over here and Hans Zimmer over here.
Yeah, so classical music.
Classical music, that's fine. Now you're going out to a dance performance when you get there. So you've arrived I've forgotten where we're going. We went from Cairo to Buenos Aires. So we're going out for a dance performance in Buenos Aires with some friends who have met you to keep you company. Now, it doesn't have to be South American dance. It doesn't have to be Argentinian, but it can be. But what dance show, if you could watch any dance show, what would you like to watch?
Well, if I'm there, I would like to watch a traditional dance show from there.
Okay, so we'd probably be looking at some tango and
love tango.
South American flamenco.
Yes, and I was
a few sevillanas.
Yeah, no, I love like watching and learning from different cultures. So tango.
Brilliant. Tango is great. And what would you like for dinner? afterwards at the restaurant?
In Argentina, maybe some, I don't know how you say in English, empanadas argentinas.
Yeah, empanadas. Yeah, I would
Empanadas
have,
or meat, you know.
yeah, steak. You got to have a steak in Buenos Aires, I would think. Now the next, I don't know if you're sporty. Are you a sport fan?
I'm not very. I do not do sport myself, like, but I sometimes go to soccer matches in the
So
summer.
if your friends said, look, we're going to take you to a sporting event, soccer, would it be soccer or would you prefer something else?
Okay, now
Yes, we're good.
okay,
We're good. That's
sorry.
fine. So football, we'll send you to a football match.
Yes, I
Okay.
guess.
Now you have to choose one of these four things, okay, for the next night.
Okay.
A pop or rock concert, a play, a musical, or an opera.
Ooh, very different. Well, it would it depending on the play or on the opera or the, but I could say like, okay, let's go and dance or something like a rock concert.
Okay,
Rock concert.
nice. That would
Yes.
be good. And what about a film?
Yeah, of course.
What would you choose to go and watch as a film
Ooh,
if you could
I
watch
don't.
anything?
I like this science fiction films. So maybe that kind of
Okay.
film.
I love Passenger, when the two people get stuck on this long space journey and they're
Yes.
in the swimming pool and it's all doing this.
Yeah, with the gravity that goes because
Yeah.
it's
Um,
broken.
now we're nearly there. This is the last one. I'm going to book a restaurant in Buenos Aires for lunch for you and three other people. Okay.
Okay.
You can choose those three other people, and they can be anyone you wish, living or dead, to join you for lunch.
Wow.
Anyone you like, and they will come.
This is a very difficult question. It's
We
like,
call it
wow.
Hero Day. It's where you get to meet your heroes if you wish.
Is it no, okay now?
We're good.
Sorry,
There
the
we go.
internet.
So
Um,
yes, so Hero Day. You've had a bit longer to think about the three
yeah,
people
no,
you would
no, no,
invite.
only just more seconds. I could say one of them could be maybe Slash from Guns N' Roses. I love this guitarist.
Love it, love it.
Um, Paco de Lucia could be another.
Those two would be great. They would be
Yeah,
good together. Paco de Lucia and Slash. Love it.
again. Okay, it's okay. Can you
Yeah,
hear
we've
me?
got Paco Lucia and Slash so
And the
far.
Slash.
One more.
Ooh, the other person. It's like difficult. Maybe some composer from the past. I think, but
Who
I
would
don't
go
know
well
who.
with Beethoven and Slash?
Maybe I was thinking about Beethoven or. or maybe Mozart, because I think it could be very funny.
That would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I'd love to be a fly on that wall. Now, the final thing I can do is relinquish you of your limit to classical music listening. You can now listen to anything on the plane, on the way home. And is there one piece of music that's not classical that you would want to listen to first, not having heard it for 12 months?
And yeah, of course, some rock music, or I was talking about Slash, some
Some
a
Guns N'
song
Roses.
from Guns N' Roses. Yeah.
There we go. Sweet Child of Mine.
Yeah, love it.
And then you go and write a classical arrangement and it's a huge hit.
Well, it could be great.
Yeah. Elena, thank you so much for doing this. This has been great fun. I'm sorry about our connection problems, but we did it. We got
Yeah.
there. It's great. So wherever this appears, there'll be links to you and your music and your work. And we'll pop that on YouTube and on SoundCloud and on the website, and then we'll promote it to the around 1 million people who use our LinkedIn group every month. So that's the plan. So thank you. Don't rush off, but thank you so much for doing this for me. I hope you enjoyed your trip.
Yes, of course. My pleasure. Thank you so much for this interview. It was very funny.